You're listening to Historical Perspectives with Mr. Mault. Learn about life by looking at our history. Teachers, for more information about historical perspectives, search Mr. Mault's Marketplace on Teachers Pay Teachers or at mrmaltmarketplace.com. Happy learning!
Ready to help. Lying to the officer was the easiest part of joining the war for Greg. He was tall for his age, and the uniform almost fit him. But the journey to the battle was long and uncomfortable on the train. The other men barely spoke to each other, and no one talked to him. An officer entered the train car and explained what would happen when they got to their location. Greg didn't understand most of it. He nodded when the others nodded and said, "Yes, sir," when the others did. Men began gathering their things and strapping guns over their shoulders. As Greg sat watching, the officer came over to him. "How old are you, soldier?" he asked. "Just turned 18, sir," Greg lied in his lowest voice. "This is war, son, not school. You understand me?" the officer said as he adjusted the shoulders on Greg's uniform. He turned to the man and said, "One of you look after this boy. You hear me?" All the men answered loudly, "Yes, sir," and a couple of them moved to sit near him. Greg sat up straight and tried not to smile. He felt better knowing someone would help him. Suddenly, the train stopped. Some nurses and different officers rushed in. They were covered in blood and talked very loudly. Greg looked out the window to see wounded men lined up on stretchers waiting. Everyone sat still, waiting for orders. Finally, the officer who had spoken to Greg announced, "Everyone off, quickly. Change of plans. We need this train for medical transport. Go!" Soldiers rushed out of one door as wounded soldiers were carried in through another door. Blood was everywhere. The nurses were calm and busy. Greg hadn't moved, but he had begun to cry. More and more soldiers were loaded on the train as Greg sat there and sobbed. What was he thinking? He was 12 years old and not ready to be in a war. Nobody told him to get off the train. Nobody told him to stay. And nobody told him to stop crying. The train started moving in the opposite direction, and the nurses continued to work quickly. "Hand me that gauze, boy," one said, and Greg jumped up to get it for her. "You have any water?" she asked. He did, and he handed that to her. She began dripping it into the mouths of the wounded. Soon, Greg was busy doing whatever they needed, and the ride back went quickly. When he helped carry the stretchers off the train, he was covered in blood, too. His mother was waiting at the station. Someone must have called ahead. She wanted to grab him, to scold him, to ask why he did this, but she didn't. She wiped her eyes with relief and helped carry stretchers off the train with everybody else. By the time Greg and his mother walked home together, there was nothing to say. They were each silently carrying their thoughts. The kind of thoughts that words can't touch. Somehow, though, they carried them together.
Thanks for listening to this Historical Perspective. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe. Also, search for Historical Perspectives on Teachers Pay Teachers to learn more about other topics, such as the Golden Gate Bridge, Henry Ford, schools in the early 1900s, and so much more. Happy learning!